apparently funded by the Casey Foundation. So not only is he, what you might call an Egyptologist from academia, but he's very familiar, of course, with all of the alternative theories and concepts surrounding it from the Casey Foundation. So that puts a bit of a slant on anything that he says or does, because you have to wonder, is he representing just the nation of Egypt?
Yeah.
And and you also have to wonder too, if his education was funded by the Casey Foundation, was there any other group involved, surrounding that?
And if we are
because we're talking about a guy who is basically in charge of the antiquities of Egypt, which is the most important relics from the ancient world.
Yeah.
And crucial to, all of these occult groups that we're, reading about. I cannot imagine, that if they had an opportunity, they wouldn't seize it to, get control of it in that way. One man at the head, and, you don't need anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in regards to the Edgar Casey Research Foundation, have you read a lot about their? What's their agenda, so to speak? If they or do they have an agenda? What's your take on it?
Yeah, as far as I can see, it would be nothing more than having an inside man running the Department of Antiquities in Egypt and having access to all of those areas and objects that most people don't.
Yeah.
Not for study or other things.
Yeah. So on the outside, he's I guess against a lot of the more esoteric ideas, and then on the backside of it, he's actually giving access, or himself having this background in regards to it. I'm not saying that I'm against in any way the Edgar Casey Research Foundation here.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction, because while we're talking about this, and it does sound somewhat sinister, I think it's important to say there's not making any judgments about Hawass or the foundation or what they're doing, because realistically, maybe it's better to have some other groups involved in this situation than just the nation of Egypt itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I'm sure, have thought about that.
Exactly. And we have a number of interesting things going on there down at Giza. Of course, we have the air shaft. Do you remember seeing? Did you follow along in this when they actually drilled through the first stone in the air shaft?
Right. In the article you posted, they talk about how they sent a robot with a drill up the shaft to sort of open up the passageway.
Yeah. So we have another.
And what was even crazier is supposedly when they got through the barrier, there was just another barrier behind it.
Yeah, exactly. I think they call it. It became known as the Gantenbrink's door or something like that. Gantenbrink's door.
It brings to mind, and I'm not saying there's a connection here. People will probably see one, but it brings to mind that the whole idea of the Oak Island treasure in the Canadian Maritimes, where they supposedly, which is a pirate treasure, and we all know who the pirates were.
Yeah.
And they flew the skull and crossbones of the Templars.
Yeah.
And they supposedly buried a treasure there, and people have been digging for it for hundreds of years and haven't gotten close, but have encountered a number of traps and different, sabotages designed to foil anyone trying to get to it.
So, do you know if they're because that's also, of course, a very interesting, topic. I've heard about it a few times, Occult. And do you know if they have, been able to get some more evidence that there's, something there, something, a real treasure, something like that?
I'm not really sure about that. If I'm not mistaken, I thought they had some kind of evidence, whether it was pieces of gold chain on a drill bit or something along those lines, but I really don't recall the specifics.
Yeah.
But it seems to me, and I think a lot of the people that research it, just the fact that someone went to the trouble to build this immense engineered structure, that involves all kinds of flooding systems, it's just unbelievable. And it leads you to think there's got to be something that they're hiding.
Do you think that this could be a modern creation, that someone is actually, again, diverting people's attention? Look at this, something like that?
Certainly possible. But, I've heard about this one for a long, long time. I remember it from the 70s, and people have been digging there since, I think, the 1800s.
Yeah. And, it resonates of the story, of course, in regards to the digging under the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem and stuff like this.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's a great connection.
Yeah. And the Templars again, of course, the 9 Templars going after the treasures in Jerusalem. But in regards to the Great, or not the Great Pyramid, but the Sphinx, of course. As I recall it, I think that the Edgar Cayce, at least, were talking about that it was a hidden chamber. I think it was either between the paws of the Sphinx, or that there was an entrance behind the ear. And this kind of stuff also, I guess, connects with the age of Leo, because I think that Cayce was talking about that we are again entering into this new age of revealing, and that we're going to find this secret chamber connected with the Sphinx, and there we have a connection between Leo the lion, a secret chamber, and the Giza plateau, and even connecting with Hawass. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it seems to match up a little too well, almost. Yeah, was it Cayce said that I think he, in a vision or something, described a Atlantean hall of records under the left paw of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
So very interesting. And that kind of sort of brings to mind that the book that you had mentioned by Picknett and Prince.
Yeah.
The Stargate Conspiracy.
Yeah. And again, this ties back to, of course, I know that they speak about the work of Hancock and Bauval in some sense in the book, and connects all of this stuff with the 9 and these types of areas. I remember an article that you wrote to us about after we put it up on the site. It was called the Rise of the Rogue Beast, and this was also, of course, connecting with the Stargate conspiracies. Do you think that they have some validity to what they're saying? I think that the main thesis is that they're trying to create this kind of interest in these kinds of subjects, and I don't know if they mean that that we're steering away from the real research or whatever, but do you think that they have some validity to what they're saying?
Well, let me be clear. I have not yet read the book, but I'm familiar with the theory. I think it's an interesting idea. What concerns me, I guess, the most is, a lot of what it involves is connecting the people researching these things, and this is not just modern day researchers. I think they go back to, Schwaller.
Schwaller-Delovich, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, and I think, basically what they're doing is connecting these people with groups or societies that, may be secret or have agenda agendas. I think it's probably wrong to just paint everybody who's involved with the group with that brush.
Yeah.
I think it's really it's bad to generalize like that, and I can point specifically to things that Michael Tsarian has talked about. People who do are members of these organizations, but they do good things from the inside.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's very possible that these people are doing a lot more good than you know about, or you may ever know about.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these researchers are those people. I'm just saying it may be wrong to label them as nefarious, sinister characters just because they associate with people who might be.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
I think, you can learn a lot from people of any kind. If you decide you're not going to talk or read about or learn anything from a person that you consider as bad or sinister, you're not going to learn much about history or politics because most of the people who have led civilizations throughout history have been these type of people.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. I mean, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. You're not getting the entire picture. It's like a person like Crowley, for example. I mean, first of all, I don't know if all things that are being said about him are true or not, and even if they are, I'm not. I mean, it's his life and his business and so forth. I don't care about that. I mean, the main idea is that he seems to be a very interesting guy, and he has a lot of connections to a lot of other higher ups within politics, but also of course within the occult, and he has influenced a lot of people. So being able to understand him and what he tried to do, I think, is a big piece of the puzzle in order to comprehend what actually has taken place on this earth, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if for nothing else, that the interest they're generating in the subject is crucial.
Yeah.
And from what I can see, the information is valid. That in the books, at least in terms of Schwaller de Lubitz or John Anthony West or Graham Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really speak to whether or not there's any disinformation going on there.
Mm.
But I think it's important that when reading any of these things, people have an open mind, and it's that old adage, align yourself with those that seek the truth and not those who claim to have already found it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. One thing that I really also of course appreciate with your work was the article I remember when you interviewed the Collins brothers, and again clearly saying at the beginning of the article that you come from you go into these areas from a different background, but nonetheless the important stuff here is about the research itself and not about what we personally believe or something like that. And I think that that's a very important aspect of actually being able to research and study these particular subjects, because this is not about sitting down and agreeing with everybody all the time. It's actually about diving into a lot of different topics with a lot of different people and being able to set your ego aside, so to speak, and take it for what it is, basically the information.
Yeah, Henrik, it's so important what you said. I can't really stress that enough. We could sit down with people who think exactly like we do and believe the exact same things that we do all the time, and we learn nothing. But we can sit down with people who are members of secret societies, or sit down with people who are academics, or sit down with people in alternative history, or in any of these fields, and have a conversation with